How's things in town hall? Is it pretty calm?
Yeah, for the most part.
Nobody coming in to take selfies with their feet on your desk?
No, we got the door locked.
No, no.
Oh, hang on a minute. I thought that got shut off. It didn't. Okay, there we go. All right, so it's 7 o'clock and you're recording and live streaming, so you're all set.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order then. Thanks for sending out the agenda and the minutes. Chris, I guess I'd like to have everyone, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes that were emailed?
Yes.
Right, while they're pondering that, let me state for the record that the members that are present are Ben Gothier, Jenna Magnuski, Chris Goulart, and Craig Curtis. Absent at this time is George Kroll.
Thanks.
And George had asked me to chair the meeting tonight, so I will attempt to do so. So I have two minor corrections in the
Okay.
minutes.
Yep.
In the discussion on section 6 on the clerk compensation discussion, the clarification that I had asked for was it wasn't across the board. It was cost of living.
Okay.
Disaggregating the cost of living from a merit increase. So it's in the first sentence in section 6.
Okay.
Where it says
Yeah.
across the board. It should have said cost of living.
Okay.
And then down, I guess it's 1 to the third bullet. There's a word in there, desegregating, and the word should have been disaggregating.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think you got some help from spell check, maybe.
Yeah.
And otherwise, I think the minutes are correct.
And then also the I had put in there that your ethics ruling was going to be included with that. I didn't send that with the minutes today because I didn't have them yet. But when I file them, that'll be part of the minutes.
Okay. Good. All right. So, not hearing any other discussion on the minutes, I'd like a motion to approve them as amended.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Let the record show that it was unanimous.
Okay. And now on communications, I guess, the only thing I had was I finally got the written final ethics opinion emailed from the state ethics office. So that's all I had. And you'll see on her email too that pretty much everything that the ethics office rules on, they post on their website. So everything is always accessible via them as well, which is quite nice. Okay, anything else in communications? Okay, so moving on to item 4, then the financial town meeting request from the budget committee. Traditionally, we use all of our appropriation for just printing and mailing. This year, we're adding to our budget the coverage of the clerk's office for support of our meetings, and so George asked me to, this evening introduce adding $1,000 to the budget committee FTM request for this year to make sure that we can cover the costs of these online meetings, and whatever overage we have, we just return. So our our request this year would be $6,500 instead of $5,500.
I'll move the.
Right. Any discussion on that? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you said that anything we don't use, we just send back, right? So I mean,
Right. All right. So it is, it is taking money, via, tax revenue, but it's returned into the general fund.
right, just to cover our bases, basically.
Right.
Makes sense.
Okay. So I guess, could I have a motion to approve that request for $6,500 for the budget committee for the
I
coming
believe
year?
I moved it. Yes.
I don't
I
think
second.
That we appropriate
very well.
6,500.
Craig Curtis said he moved it.
Okay. Is there a second?
I can second.
Second by Chris Goulart. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, let the record show it was unanimous.
Okay, great. Okay, any general discussion for the committee? And I see Bob Mushin has joined us. Bob, do you have an item?
You're on mute still, Bob.
Okay, I guess the only, thing in general discussion, we were going to be talking about the compensation for the clerk. We're waiting for the town council to make their recommendation to us, so we're not ready for that. That's why it's not on the agenda for this meeting. Okay, so let's move on to item 6 and the audit report. Tony, do you have?
Yes, I do. We did receive the draft, and obviously we're waiting for the final product, but we did receive a draft of the audit.
Okay,
I have not had an opportunity to review it yet. And Joe, unfortunately, is not able to. He had a medical emergency with his dad, so he's not available this evening.
okay. Is that an electronic copy that you've received? Right.
I would have to check with Joe. I didn't come through to me. Joe is the one that has it, but
Okay.
I see John shaking his head yes, so yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah, I got a copy. So it came in a PDF file, Ben. So it's, this is the second draft that we've received. And at this point, I'm not sure. I've got a couple of minor changes on the school side. I don't know about the town, but I think they're hoping to get it issued, I think this week, Tony, if I'm not mistaken. I think we've got an extension through the end of January with the Auditor General at this point, so.
That is correct.
Tony, in particular, I would like to see the, when you get a copy of it, in particular, the management section.
Mm-hmm.
What are the auditors saying we need to, I know it's better than it's been in the past, but would like to understand what the management letter says.
I will forward that. Okay, to all.
At your leisure, yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome, Jenna.
it's a worthwhile read. I know, Jenna, if it's new to you, but it's, it can be a dry thing, but I think it's a good education to see, how we're doing and how other people think we're doing. So yeah, thank you, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on to item 7 then, the estimated tax base for the coming year.
I'll make a brief comment. I thought that maybe Denise was going to join us. I did mention to her earlier. I do know that the numbers are going up, but Denise obviously could share that and be a little more accurate on that information than I.
Okay. Do we want to table that item for the agenda for next meeting then?
Yes, please.
I would like that. Okay. Okay, so move to item 8 then, general discussion on the school budget. John, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Thank you, Ben. So at this point, I've got a very preliminary budget put together. I'm supposed to get a copy out to the school committee sometime this week. We have our first budget workshop scheduled for Wednesday. I believe that's the 3rd. And then we have our second workshop the following week on the 10th. At which point we have a school committee that night as well. So we'd look to get final approval on that so we can submit that to Carol before the end of the month, which is the timetable that we're working up against at this point in time. So it looks like we have a preliminary state aid number from the state, and it appears that based on what I can gather from the powers that be, that it does appear that that number will be approved. So we should be looking at roughly about a $30,000 increase in our state aid to education. Now that number does get adjusted by enrollment numbers that we submit in March, but at this point, it's an estimate that I think we can use for the budget. Overall expenditures will be up. You know, our teacher contract, I believe, calls for a 2% increase. So we'll have some increase, and I think that's only on top step teachers, although most of our teachers are top step. So we'd be looking at a 2% increase on the payroll side. And non-certified union contract, I believe, is up in June. So we're in the process of mediating, I should say, negotiating that contract. And at this point, we'll have a placeholder in the budget to accommodate any potential increase in wages there. The other areas, I mean, busing has been a number that it'll show a fairly large increase. We had roughly about a 10% increase in our busing cost based on a new contract. We did bid that bus contract out. But it appears that with most districts, we've seen a double-digit increase in busing costs. So there is a little bit of an increase in that side of it. I believe in last year's budget, I did use about a 5% increase. So there's probably an additional 5% increase that I'm looking at for a current year projection. And then the contract calls for a 3% increase in FY22. The budget does not have a lot of ongoing COVID expenses. We did receive a little over $70,000 from, well, actually it would be about $85,000 from 3 sources for COVID funds. Some of those monies were used to purchase computers that we may have had in the budget in FY21, and the balance would be for air exchange improvements at the school, as well as increases in PPE and sanitizing supplies and equipment, as well as we did use tents outside. So we did have about 10 or 12,000 in rental of tents that will be funded with this COVID relief funds. I'm not sure what any new stimulus money that will come down the pike will be used for. I think long term, what I am looking at in my other district is that we would probably utilize these funds to kind of enhance the distance learning with maybe purchases of technology. So we think that we would be able to utilize that to maybe offset some costs there. So we're continuing to look at that.
Do you think that, you know, coming through where we've been, that the the district has at least a model for what operations under, pandemic conditions is going to be. And, you guys had it was a total surprise, right? And so there was a bunch of coping and best practices that you could scrape from other places. But do we actually have a model now that you think can carry forward as we get ourselves through, this year and into next year, that we'll have an understanding of what, operating costs should be under, the tail end of this, hopefully?
I think we do. Some of the questions you'll have is how much of an effect will the pandemic have in the start of the school year? We're anticipating that this budget would be a full return to in-class learning for all students. Now, we don't anticipate that the students will be receiving the vaccines. We believe that certainly the teachers and the administrators will. So the impact will be on the students. So you'll probably still look at distancing within the classrooms, which I think we're able to do because of the size of the classes. The buses will probably have limited capacity as a result of this, but we have more parents that are dropping the students off. So we think we can deal with that without having to add additional buses. We still will probably be buying a little bit more PPE in terms of sanitizing supplies and those kinds of things. So, but I don't believe that that'll be a major component of expenses. In fact, I had a conversation with the school nurse today, and we think that we'll be able to get some of the PPE supplies we need from the state. So we might not be looking at a major expense.
Okay.
There is one item that's in the budget that certainly the school committee hasn't approved this, so they're probably not even aware of it, but there was a proposal to spend about 50,000 of in the upgrade at the auditorium, or the gymatorium, I guess it is. And that was to enhance the sound and be able to do video in that, so it can be used town-wide, certainly. But so I think last year we were mulling around the idea of splitting that cost with the town in terms of doing those improvements. But the more I think about it, that if we do split that cost, and let's say it's 50,000, I'm not sure what the number would be once we dive into it. But if we split it 25-25, then we're putting 25,000 into our maintenance of effort on the school side, which I think it would be more beneficial to try to get that funded on the town side through capital, as opposed to putting it into the school budget and then having it subject to maintenance of effort requirements as we go forward. So just something to think about. It'll be a conversation I'll have with the school committee as I go through the budget.
Last year, you had some surprises with the heating plant that caused you to ripple the budget, just towards the end of the preparation. How has that gone from an execution viewpoint? Are you out of the woods there with the heating plant?
That's been pretty good. We haven't had any issues with the boiler once they've made that changes to it. So we're not looking at proposing to add another new boiler. So as you know, last year we did put in a new boiler in there, so that was fairly expensive, and they were suggesting that the backup boiler be replaced, but based on the information I got from the engineer, that some of the tweaks that they did do to the boiler, they believe that we'll continue to monitor it, but they believe that we're not in a position where we need to replace that boiler.
Okay.
at this point in time.
And you don't expect there to be any more surprise guidance on the HVAC system or anything to deal with a full school year with COVID maybe still lingering? Is there any rumbling about, what do we have to do to the HVAC system or anything?
No, I think we're in pretty good shape with that. We've got, when we redid the school, we really put in a robust air exchange system, so it's
Right.
meeting all the requirements of the Department of Health, and we've got the filters in place. So we'll probably have a little bit more expense in terms of purchasing filters, but I think there won't be any additional improvements that we'll need to do the air exchange system. The other thing that we're looking at in COVID that kind of put a damper on the progress is doing a virtual net energy project with the town, so that we would be in a position to buy green energy in a contract that would be available from some source outside of the town that would allow us to save as much as 35% on their energy costs. So we are continuing to look at that. I know Tony and I had a conference call. It was probably in early March, Tony, I think at this point in time, with the Rhode Island Department of Energy to look at putting together a virtual net energy plan. At that point in time, they were talking probably a lead time of maybe 9 to 12 months before we finally get the project in place. So as things calm down, I think Tony and I will get in contact with the Department of Energy again and try to pursue that because that'll be a substantial savings. The beauty with that is that, and I do use this in Lincoln, my other district, is that you don't have the maintenance and upkeep on a green energy project in town. You're not putting up solar fields in town. You're really buying it from another facility, which the state has allowed us to do. So you'll enter into a multi-year contract to buy your energy. And what happens is what you wind up seeing is a credit on your national grid bill for that energy that's sold back to the grid. So I think it's a win-win, and I think it's something that we're going to have to pursue because the energy costs, I know the electric at that school is ever increasing. Obviously we're using more technology. The air exchange systems are using a little bit more energy. We did have to kind of tweak the energy saving component of the air exchange, so we'll probably see a little bit of an enhancement in that. We do have a lighting project that'll be funded with some rebates from National Grid in energy savings on our bills to put all LED lighting within the schools. That's probably $130,000 project, which the grid is going to give us about $35,000, and we're going to finance that over 5 years on our energy bill, which the projections are that would be the savings that we would have in terms of our overall savings that the grid has projected. So it's really no cash outlay for that. In fact, that project is going to be starting in a couple of weeks.
Great.
John, do you anticipate that after the initial pandemic fears subside, people get vaccinated, that we would be moving back down to a lower MERV filter that wouldn't be as costly? Because I know those 13s are not cheap.
Yeah, they are. We had been using those, I think, pre-pandemic as well, too. And I know that they were expensive. I'm hoping that we get a little bit more money in stimulus funds so that we can kind of build up a supply of those, at least for the next year or so. But we can check with the engineers to see whether if we downgrade those filters to a little less expensive do we get the same benefit?
Right. And the tent expenses, do you anticipate that they will be using the tents again in the spring and in the fall?
Well, they seem to be well received, that we used quite a bit. So we'll take another look at that in the spring. I think the superintendent had thought that she would like to do that. And again, we're hoping that we could get some additional funding to fund those tents. It was about, I think about 10,000 to do them for the fall right through November, and then there was an additional amount for December, which, you know, the weather was pretty good in the fall, but that December it got to be a little cold. So, but certainly having the kids outdoors, and you know, the other issue we're going to be dealing with is that with the kids not having the vaccination, is trying to keep, you know, the spread at an appropriate level for, you know, at the class size. So we'll take a look at that and see, but hopefully we'll get some additional funding for that.
Yeah. And then my last question is, you know, the teachers are due based on their contracts for an increase, but I mean, I know I'm getting emails from my kid's teacher at like 2, 3 in the morning some days. So, you know, we talked about with Carol doing some kind of merit performance-based something for her. Is there any talk of that going on in the school system?
Well, no, I mean, I find it, especially with the collective bargaining aspect of it, it becomes a lot more problematic. You know, our legal counsel said that if we do something like that, it's got to be kind of across the board. It's going to be a negotiated item. You know, clearly, I think that that is something that you know, would be up to certainly the school committee to consider that. So, you know, at this point in time, I would have to leave it up to them as to what they want to do going forward.
So if that was a question I was interested in asking, obviously as part of this committee, but also as a parent, the best way to talk about that would be to go to a school committee meeting.
Yeah, I'll bring it up to the superintendent though.
Okay, great.
As we discuss the budget. So.
All right,
So
great. Thank you,
John,
Hey, Craig.
what does all this mean in terms of percentage increase or decrease, or where do we stand budget-wise? More than likely it'll be an increase, but what are you thinking at this point?
Right now, I think we're looking at something a little bit over 2% at this point, somewhere in the 2 to 3% range. You know, with the increases in the teacher salaries, increases in the transportation costs, and then, you know, we'll have some general increases, obviously, in, you know, utility costs and things like that. We do have some savings, again, in some of our out-of-district tuition. You know, the Portsmouth High School enrollment, it'll be down, so we'll probably see some savings there, but we're also in the middle of looking at that whole contract. The 10-year contract does expire in 2 years. We have to give a 1-year notice this year, at which point we would have to go out for competitive bids. We're thinking that we would like to extend it 1 year only so we can get past the pandemic, and then we can have more involvement by the parents in terms of looking at the contract and selecting, you know, the right environment for the high schoolers for Little Compton. So that's what we're would like to do at this point in time. In fact, we have a meeting Wednesday night, another meeting Wednesday night to talk about that aspect of it. So, and we are seeing a little bit of an increase in our technical education tuition numbers. You know, our out-of-district special education numbers, you just can't, you know, budget for those. We kind of put a number in there that we hope we can hit, but, you know, a change of one student can really impact that. So, but I think we will probably see a little bit of a reduction in cost on the out-of-district tuition, so that we kind of offset some of the increases in the expenses. We're hoping that the state aid would hold. At this point, I'm pretty comfortable that they're going to vote to continue to fund education. So I'm not expecting a big impact. And the only other number that we don't have in the budget at this point in time, and I just got an estimate in there, is our Newport County Regional Special Education. So our special education basically is through this collaborative, and they're in the process of putting together some numbers now. So, and a portion of that is funded with some government monies. We have IDEA funds and IDEA preschool funds that will help fund that. So we anticipate that funding will still be in place as we move forward, and we can offset some of those costs. But at this point, we don't have a number for the Newport County Regional yet.
So do you think we're closer to 2 or closer to 2.5?
Well, right now, I mean, we haven't really gone through the budget with the school committee. So
Okay.
right now, we're probably closer to 2.5.
And those workshops on the 3rd and the 10th, those are on Zoom. What time of day?
Yeah, they'll be on Zoom.
What time of day do those happen?
I believe the Wednesday next, the 3rd is at 5 o'clock. I'll have to double check on that one too, but they should, they obviously will get posted. I think they're probably even posted on the website for the schools. So.
Okay. Good. And when do the out-of-district students coming to Wilbur McMahon generally declare?
Well, that's all over the lot, but certainly in the spring, and probably during the summer you'll have those. So we did have a little bit of a decrease in the tuition students coming into the Wilbur McMahon, and some of that is attributed to homeschooling. Some of it that some of the parochial schools had said that they're going to do in-school learning. So some people decided that they would send their kids to the private and parochial schools. So we're hoping that we would see a little bit of a comeback in that. We had budgeted last year, I believe we budgeted 9 students. We're going to finish out the year with, I would say 7. We actually have 2 students coming in for the second half of the year. So the impact won't be felt on the tuition number because of the fact that it's only a half year. But so I think we're going to budget 8 for next year.
Okay. Just back on energy, I know there's a workshop coming. We can ask more detailed questions, but wasn't there an effort to try to get away from so much propane as well? That was a surprisingly big number.
Yeah, the propane is not, certainly the oil is a big number. I think the propane was running around 3,500. I think they're using that for hot water.
Okay.
At this point in time.
Right. And when you do the green electric, that's going to be something that Tony helps you do with the police and fire as a.
Yeah,
what kind
Yeah,
of
we're
thing.
looking at trying to do that town-wide.
Yeah, great.
So that we can kind of get a combined benefit for the town. So I think that'll be overall should be a good savings for the town.
Great. Okay. Anything else on school from anyone? Okay. Well, thank you so much, John.
Okay,
Yeah.
have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. And so moving to item 9, dates for our next meeting. I do not have those with me.
The next meeting that I have is February 9th at 7 PM. Is that correct, Carol?
Yes.
Okay. Right. And I think that covers us. So unless there's anything else from anyone, I'd like the motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right, let the record
Good night.
show.
Bye.